Starting the stream. The stream is now beginning to stream. At least that's what I believe. I hope the stream is really streaming. Howdy, y'all. Joe Hills here, recording as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee, and tonight we're going to be reading Moby Dick, or The Whale by Herman Melville. As is customary on our Moby Dick streams, we are not going to have the music that causes a bunch of headaches on the VODs. And we're not going to have a bunch of other stuff, including the setup music and the outro music. So that means while I'm setting up here, we're just going to be kind of flying around, I guess. I don't know. Maybe we'll go over there. I don't know. Okay, we're going to mute this feed. Okay, and then we're going to pop out the chat. Then we're going to edit this. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum. Reading Moby Dick on HermitCraft 10. Okay, save. Yeah, and then we're going to go down here, slow mode 3, live reactions off. Close. Okay, so now we should be all set on that front. Okay. Cool. Welcome, Figmentera. Welcome, Maddie Hilliman. Welcome, Annabelle TD. Kai Farem. Raven of the Borough Grove. Kami5. Welcome, Sent, who says, did you see the shirt I made today? No. I spent a good portion of the day at the airport, because this was a getting my kid out of town for a spring break stream. Or not stream, day. My brain is melted. My brain is pretty melted. So, we are gonna go over here to do some quick transactions. One, we need to buy some fireworks from Cub, because I am running out of fireworks again. So, money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. Money, 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 money. Money, money, you're gonna die. Okay, is there a thing? Do I have a box with books in it also? Yeah, we're gonna want that for later. But, okay, so for this first part of the stream, the goal is to buy some fireworks from Cub. Okay, we want the flight duration 3 ones, not the flight duration 2 ones. Okay. Yeah, let's go mix it up a little bit. Keep Cub guessing. Bum, 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 bum. Okay, so we're going to put most of those in the rooftop party mix box for later. Back in here. Okay. Good evening, Champagne Jane. There's 4 chapters left in Moby Dick. We still have to pin the link to what we're reading so that everybody can follow along at home. Welcome, William 1100. Welcome, White Space, Sloan Connery, Kindless MC, Minnie Zoe Kins, Amberfire, Gusty Gale. Why am I in here? Wrong shop. Muscle memory. Oh, that's fun, Centauratron. Enjoy. Okay. Even in Drubaka, even in Audit Day, I am... My brain is pretty melted, I'm going to say. We're going to start off with that. Okay, so what we need to do for this first part of the stream is we need to place frog coins here, then other shulkers here. Okay. We don't need these right now. I hope not. So let's get some frog coins out. Maybe not all of them, but like a lot of them. Okay, so now that we're feeding that into there, I think we're ready to read, but we can't read until we do a few other things. We need to post the what we're reading link, and we need to pin that. And then I also need to remind folks that this is a viewer-supported stream, and that we are $20 away from our first face camera expansion milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/Joe Hills and YouTube Super Chat. I've been well, Iconic Anemone. Thank you for asking. Busy, but well. Okay. Let's get a little caffeine. Okay. I feel like I've been 1 cup of coffee behind all day. I spent 75 minutes waiting at the customer service desk to get my gate pass to take my daughter in. And I was hoping to get some coffee at the airport. So I had a little bit of coffee when I got home, but I feel like I've been playing catch-up all day because we did not have time to get it at the airport. Okay. Oh no, we don't want to put ochre frog lights in the frog coin bin. So we're going to switch things here. Maybe we should just put all of these away so we stop getting those in there. Okay. Welcome, Marin. Welcome, Quackit. Welcome, Hey Ace. Glad you could join us. Okay. This is a little bit noisier than some of the digging. I'm not sure. We'll see how we feel about this. Welcome to Chapter 132 of Moby Dick or the Whale by Herman Melville. The Symphony. It was a clear, steel blue day. The firmaments of air and sea were hardly separable in that all-pervading azure. Only the pensive air was transparently pure and soft, with a woman's look, and the robust and manlike sea heaved up with long, lingering swells, as Samson's chest in his sleep. Hither and thither, on high, glided the snow-white wings of small, unspeckled birds. These were the gentle thoughts of the feminine air. But to and fro in the deeps, far down in the bottomless blue, rushed mighty leviathans, swordfish and sharks. And these were the strong, troubled, murderous thinkings of the masculine sea. But though thus contrasting within, the contrast was only in shades and shadows without. Those two seemed one. It was only sex, as it were, that distinguished them. Aloft, like a royal czar and king, the sun seemed giving his gentle air to this bold and rolling sea, even as bride to groom. And at the girdling line of the horizon, a soft and tremulous motion, most seen here at the equator, denoted the fond, throbbing trust, the loving alarms, with which the poor bride gave her bosom away. Tied up and twisted, gnarled and knotted with wrinkles, haggardly firm and unyielding, his eyes glowing like coals that still glow in the ashes of ruin, untottering Ahab stood forth in the clearness of the morn, lifting his splintered helmet of a brow to the fair girl's forehead of heaven. O immortal infancy and innocency of the azure, invisible winged creatures that frolic all around us, sweet childhood of air and sky. How oblivious were ye of old Ahab's close-coiled woe? But so have I seen little Miriam and Martha, laughing-eyed elves, heedlessly gambol around their old sire, sporting with the circle of singed locks which grew on the marge of that burnt-out crater of his brain. Slowly crossing the deck from the scuttle, Ahab leaned over the side and watched how his shadow in the water sank and sank to his gaze. The more and more that he strove to pierce the profundity. But the lovely aromas in that enchanted air did at last seem to dispel, for a moment, the cantankerous thing in his soul. That glad, happy air, that winsome sky, did at last stroke and caress him. The stepmother world, so long cruel, forbidding, now threw affectionate arms round his stubborn neck, and did seem to joyously sob over him, as if over one, that however wilful and erring, she could yet find it in her heart to save and to bless. From beneath his slouched hat, Ahab dropped a tear into the sea. Nor did all the Pacific contain such wealth as that one wee drop. Starbuck saw the old man, saw him, how he heavily leaned over the side, and he seemed to hear in his own true heart the measureless sobbing that stole out of the center of the serenity around. Careful not to touch him, or be noticed by him, he yet drew near to him, and stood there. Ahab turned. "Starbuck!" "Sir." "Oh, Starbuck! It is a mild, mild wind, and a mild-looking sky. On such a day, very much a sweetness as this, I struck my first whale. A boy harpooner of 18. 40 years ago. 40 years of continual whaling. 40 years of privation and peril in storm time. 40 years on the pitiless sea. For 40 years has Ahab forsaken the peaceful land. For 40 years to make war on the horrors of the deep. Aye, and yes, Starbuck, out of these 40 years I have not spent 3 ashore. When I think of the life I have led, the desolation of solitude it has been, the masoned walled town of a captain's exclusiveness, which admits but small entrances to any sympathy from the green country without, oh, weariness, heaviness. Guinea Coast slavery of a solitary command. When I think of all this, only half suspected, not so keenly known to me before, and how for 40 years I have fed upon dry, salted fare. Fit emblem of the dry nourishment of my soul, when the poorest landsman has had fresh fruit to his daily hand, and broken the world's fresh bread to my moldy crusts, away, whole oceans away, from that young girl wife I wedded past 50, and sailed for Cape Horn the next day, leaving but one dent in my marriage pillow. Wife, rather a widow with her husband alive. I widowed that poor girl when I married her, Starbuck. And then, the madness, the frenzy, The boiling blood and the smoking brow with which for 1,000 lowerings old Ahab has furiously foamingly chased his prey, more a daemon than a man. Aye, what a 40 years fool, old fool Ahab has been. Why this strife of the chase? Why weary and palsy the arm at the oar and the iron and the lance? How the richer or better is Ahab now? Behold, O Starbuck, is it not hard that with this weary load I bear, one poor leg should have been snatched from under me? Here, brush this old hair aside. It blinds me that I seem to weep. Locks so gray did never grow, but from out some ashes. But do I look very old, so very, very old, Starbuck? I feel deadly faint, bowed and humped, as though I were Adam staggering beneath the piled centuries since paradise. God, crack my heart, stave my brain. Mockery, bitter bidding mockery of gray hairs. Have I lived enough joy to wear ye, and seem and feel thus intolerably old? Close. Stand close to me, Starbuck. Let me look into a human eye. It is better than to gaze into sea or sky. Better than to gaze upon God. By the green land, by the bright hearthstone, this is the magic glass, man. I see my wife and my child in thine eye. No. Stay on board. Lower not when I do. When branded Ahab gives chase to Moby Dick, that hazard shall not be thine. No, not with the faraway home I see in that eye. Oh, my captain, noble soul, grand old heart, after all, why should anyone give chase to that hated fish? Away with me! Let us fly these deadly waters, let us home. Wife and child too are Starbuck's, wife and child of his brotherly, sisterly playfellow youth, even as thine, sir, are the wife and child of thy loving, longing, paternal old age. Away! Let us away! This instant let me alter the course. How cheerily, how hilariously, oh my captain, would we bowl on our way to see old Nantucket again, I think, sir. They have some such mild blue days, even as this in Nantucket. They have. I've seen them. Some summer days in the morning, about this time, yes. It is his noon nap now. The boy vivaciously wakes, sits up in bed, and his mother tells him of me, of cannibal old me, how I am abroad upon the deep. But I will come back to dance with him again. 'Tis my Mary herself. She promised that my boy every morning should be carried to the hill to catch the first glimpse of his father's sail. Yes, no more. It is done. We head for Nantucket. Come, my captain. Study out the course, and let us away. See the boy's face from the window. The boy's hand on the hill. But Ahab's glance was averted. Like a blighted fruit tree he shook, and cast his last cindered apple to the soil. What is it? What nameless, inscrutable, unearthly thing is it? What cozen and hidden lord and master and cruel, remorseless emperor commands me that against all natural lovings and longings, I so keep pushing and crowding and jamming myself on all the time, recklessly making me ready to do what? In my own proper, natural heart, I durst not so much as dare. Is Ahab Ahab? Is it I, God, or who, that lifts this arm? But if the great sun move not of himself, but is an errand boy in heaven, nor one single star can revolve, but by some invisible power, how then can this one small heart beat, this one small brain think thoughts, unless God does that beating, does that thinking, does that living, and not I? By heaven, man, we are turned round and round in this world like yonder windlass, and fate is the handspike. And all the time, lo, that smiling sky and this unsounded sea. Look, see yon albacore, who put it into him to chase and fang that flying fish? Where do murderers go, man? Who's to doom when the judge himself is dragged to the bar? But it is a mild, mild wind, and a mild-looking sky, and the air smells now as if it blew from a far-away meadow. They have been making hay somewhere under the slopes of the Andes, Starbuck, and the mowers are sleeping among the new-mown hay. Sleeping. Aye, toil we how we may, we all sleep at last on the field. Aye, and rust amid greenness, as last year's scythes flung down, and left in the half-cut swaths. Starbuck? But blanched to a corpse's hue with despair, the mate had stolen away. Ahab crossed the deck to look over the other side, but stared at two reflected, fixed eyes in the water there. Fadala was motionlessly leaning over the same rail. And that concludes chapter 132 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. If you're enjoying this stream, tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. Champagne Jane says, what did he mean by calling himself a cannibal? I don't believe he was speaking literally about eating people. And in this time period, cannibal and savage and heathen were used kind of interchangeably. He has become a man who has blasphemed in the forging of that spear, that harpoon he made, with the blood pact he made with the other harpooneers in defiance of God. So I don't think he's like gone out and eaten anybody. But he's basically said he's turned his back on Christianity. Because I don't believe any of the harpooneers are, I don't believe any of the harpooneers are Christian. And he is leading them on a quest where he has basically pledged fealty to Satan above God in order to achieve success. Which is not considered really proper in the Quaker Church of that time period. So, we are running out of storage space here, so I guess we can put this in our offhand. Let's put the food in our offhand, I guess. We might need to go get more shulker boxes, or offload some of this. I'm not sure how long this thing is going to keep feeding me. I stopped putting coins in there a while ago. We put in... We can do a quick count here. This many. All of the frog lights were stacks of coins. No, Ahab does have a wife. He was saying that he married her when he had just turned 50, and he's 58 now. So they've been married 8 years. And they have a baby son. Maybe a toddler now. Baby son, Okay, we've got to go put some of this away. So let's just go dump our current inventory's worth over here in Hello, My Name is Lasertag. Yeah, Etho might just be down there pressing a button to keep dispensing these to be silly. Do you mean Starbuck? I don't think there's a character with that name, Simply Lost. Okay, so we're going to run back here. Okay, we need to update our what we're reading link. Does anybody else have any thoughts or questions about that chapter? Amberfire says, in current time, I feel like 8 years is a while. Yeah, but he's saying, though, that, like, he's barely been home since he got married. He's going out on multiple, like, 2 to 3 year tours, right? Yeah, so the kid's probably a toddler now. Okay. Whoops, that's too far. Can we fix this camera a better way? Nom 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 nom. Nom 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 nom. I feel like I'm playing Pac-Man, not Frogger. Well, he said he spent, in the entire 40 years he's been a whaling, like a whaleman. In the 40 years he's been a whaleman, he has been at home for about 3 years. So he's been at home like 8% of the time. And he's been at sea over 90% of the time. Well, Mellow Moogle, that word gets auto-modded because it has a lot of spam bots use that to promote buying followers and stuff. So it's just easier to not allow it. Okay, so I gotta stop eating these because I'm gonna just... I am not gonna... This cannot be a balanced breakfast. Like, I feel like I should eat other things instead of only these, but I'm filling up on these. Nom 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 nom. Okay. So this is not where we're gonna keep the camera the whole time, because this only works like while I'm holding crouch. Nom nom nom. Now I'm also eating bread. Okay, we have almost filled another inventory here. I feel like it would probably be wise to take all of these to the Hello My Neighbors laser tag place as well. Because we didn't leave any extra shulkers over here, so we just gotta dump these. But we can get these later, is the core concept. Bum 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 bum. Nighttime. Yeah, I'm gonna spoil my dinner if I keep eating only frog lights. Thanks, Etho. Thetho. Okay. This is a lot of stacks. What is the ratio on these? I have no idea. 1 frog coin equals 4. Well, that to me says if I put in 1 row, if I put in 1 row of these plus a little extra, I should have gotten 5 rows back. I have not gotten 5 rows back. Oh, wait. Wait, no, that might not be correct. Ethos, part of a balanced breakfast. I wonder if he got the math crossed somewhere. So each frog coin is giving me 24 frog lights. 1 stack of frog coins should equal 4 stacks of lights. Yeah, but like, we have filled basically 5 or 6 shulkers worth already. With 12 stacks. We put 12 stacks of frog lights in, so we should have gotten 48 stacks. No, we put 12 stacks of frog coins in. So we should have gotten 48 stacks back. But we've gotten at least like 80 stacks back. At the same time, though, Etho actually still owes us a ton of frog coins. So this just saves him a trip, because we have delivered him so much stone. Okay, so, just as a reminder, hey, we got our first tip of the stream rolling in. Thank you very much to Kitty for tipping 20, who says, expand. So please direct your attention down here to slot 9, where I'm putting the hot in the hot bar. So I can say, howdy, y'all. Grow Hills here, expanding as I always do in Nashville, Tennessee. Dee-da-dee-da-dee, dee-da-dee-da-dee, dee-dee. That puts us now 20 even from the next face camera expansion milestone. Tips are cumulative toward those expansions. I track them on this abacus here. So, all right. Just as a reminder, let me repost that tipping link. I don't necessarily read tips in the middle of a chapter unless, like I hit a natural breaking point. So, yeah. I want to try something real quick. Okay, we'll come back to that later. Welcome, Mars. Glad you could join us. My name is Joe Hills. I'm broadcasting live in Nashville, Tennessee, and we are currently reading Moby Dick by Herman Melville. We just finished chapter 132, and we're about to start chapter 133. We're taking a quick break for tips to roll in, and Wandering Mask just tipped 3. Thank you, Wandering Mask. Who says, thank you for reading. Your streams always lift me out of a low day. Hey, you're most welcome. Appreciate you. That puts us now 17 away from the next face camera expansion milestone. Okay. So welcome, Raiders. So, I think the next chapter's got a pretty exciting title. I think this might be something that y'all have been waiting for almost a year now. We've been reading this book for almost a year now. Chapter 133 is entitled The Chase. And then, I bet if you're like, oh man, I bet this is it. I bet this is when they capture Moby Dick. And maybe they interrogate him and find out where the rest of the whales are hiding. It's a hyphenated chapter title. It's Chapter 133, The Chase, hyphen, First Day. So, yeah. So, this is not the last chapter. Hey, we got a tip rolling in from Anonymous as well. Before we start that chapter, let's acknowledge that. Thank you, Anonymous, who writes, thanks for reading. Yeah, I always enjoy this. That puts us now 12 away from the next expansion milestone. Okay, so yeah, let's get into it. I'm really glad that Etho's machine is giving us a lot of frog lights, because we did need a lot of frog lights. So this is fine. This is not a problem yet. We'll see if this becomes a problem. Do we want to maybe just slightly turn down block sounds? Maybe turn down friendly creatures? Okay. The Chase. First day. That night, in the mid-watch, when the old man, as he is wont to at intervals, stepped forth from the scuttle in which he leaned. Is there a good... Sorry, I should have set this shot up first. Let's just do first person. Yeah, y'all know what it looks like. That night, in the mid-watch, when the old man, as his wont at intervals, stepped forth from the scuttle in which he leaned, and went to his pivot hole, he suddenly thrust out his face fiercely, snuffing up the sea air, as a sagacious ship's dog will, in drawing nigh to some barbarous isle. He declared that a whale must be near. Soon that peculiar odor, sometimes to a great distance given forth by the living sperm whale, was palpable to all the watch. Nor was any mariner surprised when, after inspecting the compass, and then the dog vane, and then ascertaining the precise bearing of the odor as nearly as possible, Ahab rapidly ordered the ship's course to be slightly altered, and the sail to be shortened. The acute policy dictating these movements was sufficiently vindicated at daybreak by the sight of a long sleek on the sea, directly and lengthwise ahead, smooth as oil, and resembling, in the pleated watery wrinkles bordering it, the polished metallic-like marks of some swift tide rip at the mouth of a deep, rapid stream. "Man the mastheads! Call all hands!" Thundering with the butts of 3 clubbed handspikes on the forecastle deck, Daggoo roused the sleepers with such judgment claps that they seemed to exhale from the scuttle, so instantaneously did they appear with their clothes in their hands. "What do you say?" cried Ahab, flattening his face to the sky. Nothing, sir," was the sound hailing down in reply. "To gallant sails, stun sails, allow it aloft, and on both sides." All sail being set, he now cast loose the lifeline reserved for swaying him to the main royal masthead, and in a few moments they were hoisting him thither, when, while but 2/3 of the way aloft, and while peering ahead through the horizontal vacancy between the main topsail and the top gallant sail, he raised a gull-like cry in the air. "There she blows! There she blows! A hump like a snow hill! It is Moby Dick!" Fired by the cry, which seemed simultaneously taken up by the 3 lookouts, the men on deck rushed to the rigging to behold the famous whale they had so long been pursuing. Ahab had now gained his final perch some feet above the other lookouts, Tashtego standing just beneath him on the cap of the top gallant mast, so that his head was almost on level with Ahab's heel. From this height, the whale was now some mile or so ahead, at every roll of the sea revealing his high sparkling hump and regularly jetting his silent spout into the air. To the credulous mariners, it seemed the same silent spout they had so long ago beheld in the moonlit Atlantic and Indian Oceans. "And did none of ye see it before?" cried Ahab, hailing the perched men all around him. "I saw him almost the same instant, sir, that Captain Ahab did, and I cried out," said Tashtego. "Not the same instant, not the same, no. The doubloon is mine. Fate reserved the doubloon for me. I only, none of ye could have raised the white whale first. There she blows, there she blows, there she blows, there again, he cried in long-drawn, lingering, melodic tones, attuned to the gradual prolongings of the whale's visible jets. "He's going to sound. In stun sails, down top gallant sails, stand by, 3 boats. Mr. Starbuck, remember, stay on board and keep the ship. Helm there, luff a point. So, steady, man, steady. There go flukes. No, only black water. Already the boat's there. Stand by, lower me. Mr. Starbuck, lower, quicker." And he slid through the air to the deck. "He's heading straight to leeward, sir," cried Stubb. "Right away from us. Cannot have seen the ship yet." "Be dum, man. Stand by the braces. Hard down the helm. Brace up. Shiver. So well that. Boats. Soon all the boats but Starbuck's were dropped. All the boat sails set. All the paddles plying, with rippling swiftness shooting to leeward, and Ahab heading the onset. A pale death glimmer lit up Fadala's sunken eyes. A hideous motion gnawed his mouth. Like noiseless nautilus shells, their light prows sped through the sea. But only slowly they neared the foe. As they neared him, the ocean grew still more smooth, seemed drawing a carpet over its waves, seemed a noon meadow, so serenely it spread. At length, the breathless hunter came so nigh his seemingly unsuspecting prey that his entire dazzling hump was distinctly visible, sliding along the sea as if it were an isolated thing, and continually set in a revolving ring of finest, fleecy, greenish foam. He saw the vast, involved wrinkles of the slightly projecting head, He saw the vast involved wrinkles of the slightly projected head beyond. Before it, far out on the soft Turkish rugged waters, went the glistening white shadow from his broad milky forehead, a musical rippling playfully accompanying the shade. And behind, the blue waters interchangeably flowed over into the moving valley of his steady wake, and on either hand, bright bubbles arose and danced by his side. But these were broken again by the light toes of hundreds of gay fowl softly feathering the sea, alternate with their fitful flight, and like to some flagstaff rising from the painted hull of an argosy, the tall but shattered pole of recent lance projected from the white whale's back, and, at intervals, one of the cloud of soft-toed fowls hovering, to and fro skimming like a canopy over the fish, silently perched and rocked on this pole, long tail feathers streaming like pennons. A gentle joyousness, a mighty mildness of repose in swiftness, invested the gliding whale. Not the white bull Jupiter swimming away with ravished Europa clinging to its graceful horns, his lovely leering eyes sideways intent upon the maid, with smooth, bewitching fleetness, rippling straight for the nuptial bower in Crete. Not Jove, not that great majesty supreme, did surpass the glorified white whale as he so divinely swam. On each soft side, coincident with the parted swell, that but once leaving him, then flowed so wide away. On each bright side, the whale shed off enticings. No wonder there had been some among the hunters who, namelessly transported and allured by all this serenity, had ventured to assail it, but had fatally found that quietude but the vesture of tornadoes. Yet calm, enticing calm, O whale, thou glidest on to all who for the first time eye thee, no matter how many in that same way thou mayest have bejuggled and destroyed before. And thus, through the serene tranquillities of the tropical sea, among waves whose hand-clappings were suspended by exceeding rapture, Moby Dick moved on, withholding from sight the full terrors of his submerged trunk, entirely hiding the wrenched hideousness of his jaw. But soon, the fore part of him slowly arose from the water. For an instant, his whole marbleized body formed a high arch like Virginia's natural bridge, and warningly waved his bannered flukes in the air. The grand god revealed himself, sounded, and went out of sight. Hoveringly halting and dipping on the wing, the white sea fowls longingly lingered over the agitated pool that he left. With oars apeak and paddles down, the sheets of their sails adrift, the three boats now stilly floated, awaiting Moby Dick's reappearance. "An hour," said Ahab, standing rooted in his boat's stern, and he gazed beyond the whale's place toward the dim blue spaces and wide wooing vacancies to leeward. It was only an instant, for again his eyes seemed whirling round in his head as he swept the watery circle. It was the breeze now freshened. The sea began to swell. "The birds! The birds! Cried Tashtego. In long Indian file, as when herons take wing, the white birds were now all flying toward Ahab's boat, and when, within a few yards, began fluttering over the water there, wheeling round and round with joyous, expectant cries. Their vision was keener than man's. Ahab could discover no sign in the sea, but suddenly, as he peered down and down into its depths, he profoundly saw a white living spot, no larger than a white weasel, with wonderful celerity uprising and magnifying as it rose, till it turned, and then there were plainly revealed 2 long crooked rows of white glistening teeth, floating up from the undiscoverable bottom. It was Moby Dick's open mouth and scrolled jaw, his vast shadowed bulk still half blending with the blue of the sea. The glittering mouth yawned beneath the boat like an open-doored marble tomb, and giving one sidelong sweep with his steering oar, Ahab whirled the craft aside from this tremendous apparition. Then, calling upon Fedallah to change places with him, went forward to the bows, and, seizing Perth's harpoon, commanded his crew to grasp their oars and stand by to stern. Now, actually, now is a great time, since we just finished a paragraph there. We're going to go ahead and thank Linksy for the raid. Welcome, Linksy Raiders. My name is Joe Hills. I'm broadcasting live from Nashville, Tennessee. If you're curious what we are building, I'm going to post a link to that. This is a Library of Congress hosted survey of a landscape. This is a landscape architectural survey hosted by the Library of Congress of the Bell Labs Research and Development Campus from Holmdel, New Jersey, designed by Finnish-American architect Eero Saarinen. This building, when it was constructed, was the largest mirrored glass building in the world. It was a 1/4 mile long. It is surrounded by an oval ring road that's 900 meters on the major diameter, 600 meters on the minor diameter. There's 3 pools. 1, 2, 3. Plus some random water I haven't filled in yet, but that's going to be grass later. We are working on lighting up the inside of the building with lamps. And when I do particularly time-consuming tasks like clearing out the mountains around here, or collecting sand to make all the glass, or things like that, what we tend to do on this stream is to read a novel. In the past, we read the entirety of Dracula, one Saturday night at a time. Saturday is the grind and read night for my stream. The other streams, if you come back throughout the week, are a lot different and chill in different ways. My stream schedule is always available at joehills.net/soon. And you can follow me on Twitch and YouTube to get alerts when I go live. But, yeah, where was I? So, when y'all raided, we were just in the middle of a chapter of Moby Dick, or The Whale by Herman Melville. Chapter 132, The Chase, the First Day. And, I guess we're going to find out what they were chasing. No, we know what they were chasing. It was Moby Dick. And Moby Dick has just sounded, which is when a whale breathes in and then plummets into the depths of the sea. But they almost always stay down there for about an hour and then come back up and spout. And then ships look for the spout and try to follow them. So Moby Dick has just sounded, and Captain Ahab is annoyed. He's like, an hour. And then, like, a minute and a half later, Moby Dick tries to take a little chomp of the boat. He faked them out. and Captain Ahab has just seen the whale rising up from underneath the boat as he peered into the ocean, and is about to just gave orders to stand by to stern. So let's go ahead and continue. Now, by reason of this timely spinning round of the boat on its axis, its bow, by anticipation, was made to face the whale's head while yet underwater. But, as if perceiving this stratagem, Moby Dick, with that malicious intelligence ascribed to him, sidelingly transplanted himself, as it were, in an instant, shooting his pleated head lengthwise beneath the boat. Through and through every plank and each rib, it thrilled for an instant. The whale, obliquely lying on his back in the manner of a biting shark, slowly and feelingly taking its bows full within its mouth, so that the long, narrow, scrolled lower jaw curled high up into the open air, and one of the teeth caught in a rowlock. The bluish pearl white of the inside of the jaw was within 6 inches of Ahab's head, and reached higher than that. In this attitude, the white whale now shook the slight cedar as a mildly cruel cat her mouse. With unastonished eyes, Fedallah gazed and crossed his arms. But the crew were tumbling over each other's heads to gain the uttermost stern. And now, while both elastic gunnels were springing in and out, as the whale dallied with the doomed craft in his devilish way. Sorry, I'm not... Normally the stuff we do is a lot simpler than trying to replace blocks. This has actually been more challenging than I thought it was going to be. Normally we do like big terraforming projects while we're reading, or run furnaces. But I was like, I can place trapdoors. But since we're at kind of a dramatic part of the book, I think we're going to stand down from the block placement for a minute. And just try and get through this scene, because it's a pretty big scene. Blip. Okay. And now, while both elastic gunnels were springing in and out, as the whale dallied with the doomed craft in this devilish way, and from his body being submerged beneath the boat, he could not be darted at from the bows, for the bows were almost inside of him, as it were. And while the other boats involuntarily paused, as before a quick crisis impossible to withstand, then it was that monomaniac Ahab, furious with this tantalizing vicinity of his foe, which placed him all alive and helpless in the very jaws he hated, frenzied with all this, he seized the long bone with his naked hands, and wildly strove to wrench it from its gripe. And now thus he vainly strove. The jaw slipped from him. The frail gunnels bent in, collapsed, and snapped as both jaws, like an enormous shears, sliding further aft, bit the craft completely in twain, and locked themselves fast again in the sea, midway between the two floating wrecks. These floated aside, the broken ends drooping, the crew at the stern wreck clinging to the gunnels, and striving to hold fast to the oars to lash them across. At that preluding moment, ere the boat was yet snapped, Ahab, the first to perceive the whale's intent by the crafty upraising of his head, a movement that loosed his hold for the time. At that moment his hand made one final effort to push the boat out of the bite, but only slipping further into the whale's mouth and tilting over sideways as it slipped. The boat had shaken off his hold on the jaw, spilled him out of it as he leaned to the push, and so he fell flat-faced upon the sea. Ripplingly withdrawing from his prey, Moby Dick now lay at a little distance, vertically thrusting his oblong white head up and down in the billows, and at the same time slowly revolving his whole spindled body, so that when his vast wrinkled forehead rose some 20 or more feet out of the water, the now rising swells, with all their confluent waves, dazzlingly broke against it, vindictively tossing their shivered spray still higher into the air. This motion is peculiar to the sperm whale. It receives its designation, pitch pulling, from its being likened to that preliminary up and down poise of the whale lance, in the exercise called pitch pulling, previously described. By this motion, the whale must best and most comprehensively view whatever objects may be encircling him. So, in a gale, the but half-baffled channel billows only recoil from the base of the Eddystone, triumphantly to overleap its summit with their scud. But soon resuming his horizontal attitude, Moby Dick swam swiftly round and round the wrecked crew, sideways churning the water in his vengeful wake, as if lashing himself up to still another and more deadly assault. The sight of the splintered boat seemed to madden him, as the blood of grapes and mulberries cast before Antiochus's elephant in the book of Maccabees. Meanwhile, Ahab, half smothered in the foam of the whale's insolent tail, and too much disabled to swim, though he could still keep afloat, even in the heart of such a whirlpool as that, helpless Ahab's head was seen like a tossed bubble which the least chance shock might burst. From the boat's fragmentary stern, Fedallah incuriously and mildly eyed him. The clinging crew, at the other drifted end, could not succor him. More than enough was it for them to look to themselves, for so revolvingly appealing was the white whale's aspect, and so planetarily swift in the ever-contracting circles he made, that he seemed horizontally swooping upon them. And though the other boats, unharmed, still hovered hard by, still they dared not to pull into the eddy to strike, lest that should be the signal for the instant destruction of the jeopardized castaways, Ahab and all. Nor, in that case, could they themselves hope to escape. With straining eyes, then, they remained on the outer edge of the direful zone, whose center had now become the old man's head. Meantime, from the beginning, all this had been descried from the ship's mastheads, and, squaring her yards, she had borne down upon the scene, and was now so nigh that Ahab in the water hailed her. "Sail on the—" But at that moment a breaking sea dashed on him from Moby Dick, and whelmed him for the time. But struggling out of it again, and chancing to rise on a towering crest, he shouted, "Sail on the whale! Drive him off!" The Pequod's prows were pointed, and breaking up the charmed circle, she effectually parted the white whale from his victim. As he sullenly swam off, the boats flew to the rescue. Dragged into Stubbs' boat with bloodshot, blinded eyes, the white brine caking in his wrinkles, the long tension of Ahab's bodily strength did crack, and helplessly he yielded to his body's doom. For a time, laying all crushed in the bottom of Stubbs's boat, like one trodden under the foot of herds of elephants. Far inland, nameless wails came from him as desolate sounds from out ravines. But this intensity of his physical prostration did but so much the more abbreviate it. In an instant's compass, great hearts sometimes condense to one deep pang, the sum total of all those shallow pains kindly diffused through feeble man's whole lives. And so, such hearts, though summary in each one suffering, still, if the gods decree it, in their time aggregate a whole age of woe, wholly made up of instantaneous intensities. For even in their pointless centers, those noble natures contain the entire circumference of inferior souls. "The harpoon!" said Ahab, halfway rising, draggingly leaning on one bended arm. "Is it safe?"
"Aye, sir, for it was not darted. This is it,"
said Stubb, showing it. "Lay it before me. Any missing man?"
"1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There were 5 oars, sir, and here are 5 men."
That's good. Help me, man. I wish to stand. Hands off from me. The eternal sap runs up in Ahab's bones again. Set the sails. Out oars. The helm. It is often the case that when a boat is stove, its crew, being picked up by another boat, help to work that second boat, and the chase is thus continued with what is called double-banked oars. It was thus now, but the added power of the boat did not equal the added power of the whale, for he seemed to have treble-banked his every fin, swimming with a velocity which plainly showed that if now, under those circumstances, pushed on, the chase would prove an indefinitely prolonged, if not a hopeless one, nor could any crew endure for so long a period such an unintermittent, intense straining at the oar, a thing barely tolerable only in some one brief vicissitude. The ship itself, then, as it sometimes happens, offered the most promising intermediate means of overtaking the chase. Accordingly, the boats now made for her, and were soon swayed up to their cranes, the 2 parts of the wrecked boat having been previously secured by her, and then hoisting everything up to her side, and stacking her canvas high up and sideways outstretching it with stun sails. Like the double-jointed wings of an albatross, the Pequod bore down in the leeward wake of Moby Dick. At the well-known, methodic intervals, the whale's glittering spout was regularly announced from the manned mastheads, and when he would be reported as just gone down, Ahab would take the time, and then, pacing the deck, binnacle watch in hand, so soon as the last second of the allotted hour expired, his voice was heard. "Whose doubloon is it now? Do you see him?" And if the reply was "No, sir," straight away he commanded them to lift him to his perch. In this way the day wore on. Ahab, now aloft and motionless, anon unrestingly pacing the planks, and as he was thus walking, uttering no sound except to hail the men aloft, or to bid them hoist a sail still higher, or to spread one to a still greater breadth. Thus, to and fro pacing beneath his slouched hat, at every turn he passed his own wrecked boat, which had been so dropped upon the quarter deck, and lay there reversed, broken bow to shattered stern. At last he paused before it, and as an already overclouded sky fresh troops of clouds will sometimes sail across, so over the old man's face there now stole some such added gloom as this. Stubb saw him pause, and perhaps intending, not vainly though, to evince his own unabated fortitude, and thus keep up a valiant place in his captain's mind. He advanced, and, eyeing the wreck, exclaimed,
The thistle the ass refused. It pricked his mouth too keenly, sir. Ha ha.
"What soulless thing is this that laughs before a wreck? Man, did I not know thee brave as fearless fire, and as mechanical? I could swear thou wert a poltroon. Groan nor laugh should be heard before a wreck."
Aye, sir,
said Starbuck, drawing near.
"'Tis a solemn sight, an omen, and an ill one."
Omen? Omen? The dictionary. If the gods think to speak outright to man, they will honorably speak outright, not shake their heads and give an old wives' dark hint. Begone! Ye two are the two opposite poles of one thing. Starbuck is Stubb reversed, and Stubb is Starbuck, and ye two are all mankind. And Ahab stands alone among the millions of the peopled earth, nor gods nor men his neighbors. Cold, cold, I shiver. How now? Aloft there! Do you see him? Sing out for every spout, though he spout 10 times a second. The day was very nearly done. Only the hem of his golden robe was rustling. Soon it was almost dark, but the lookout men still remained unset.
"Can't see the spout now, sir. Too dark,"
cried a voice from the air. "How heading when last seen?"
"As before, sir. Straight to leeward."
"Good. He will travel slower now, 'tis night. Down, royals! Top-gallant stunsails, Mr. Starbuck. We must not run over him before morning. He's making a passage now, and may heave to a while. Helm there! Keep her full before the wind. Aloft! Come down! Mr. Stubb, send a fresh hand to the foremast head. See it manned till morning." Then, advancing toward the doubloon and the mainmast, "Men, this gold is mine. I earned it. But I shall let it abide here till the white whale is dead. And then, whosoever of ye first raises him, upon the day he shall be killed, this gold is that man's. And if on that day I shall again raise him, 10 times its sum shall be divided among all of ye. Away now, the deck is thine, sir." And so saying, he placed himself halfway within the scuttle, and slouching his hat, stood there till dawn, except when at intervals rousing himself to see how the night wore on. And that concludes Chapter 133 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. The Chase - First Day. I hope y'all enjoyed that chapter. Sorry I had to take a break from the block placing, but this was a particularly fast tempo chapter, and I felt like I tend to read a little bit slower when I'm working, and I tend to lose my place a little bit more often, which in a slower part, when they're just admiring a pretty beautiful day on the sea, is fine. But when they're getting attacked by Moby Dick, I kind of feel like, boy, maybe this is time to focus on the book. But yeah, if y'all enjoy this, feel free to tip. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/joehills and YouTube Super Chat. I saw a question rolling in earlier. What mod am I using for the camera stuff? I am using the Camera Utils mod by Hinklemax. Let me see if I can find that. Discover content mods, Camera Utils. Although I will warn you, the base version, like the way the mod is built initially, doesn't allow you to do what I do with it. You have to go in and mess with the config files. So basically, just go put some big numbers in the config files, and you'll figure it out eventually. That's what I did. Because there's like sliders inside the mod menu that are like capped at like values between like 3 and -3 or 4 and -4, and you want to really like turn those up to like 35, 28 or something, right? So I've got the camera. This is a camera setting that I originally designed for when I'm flying, so I can keep the right angle to be to avoid stalling and avoid sailing into the ocean or the ground, but be able to see stuff around me better. Because like, if I'm at an angle where I'm looking down, I'm crashing. But if I have an angle where the camera is looking down, but I'm slightly above the horizon, then I'm good. So that was how I designed that. But yeah, Daddy Bird says, so much progress. I didn't realize you got in the trapdoors and lights in. Well, that's actually what we're doing today. Yeah, I was having a little bit of a hard time placing the blocks while reading, so we took a break from that for the time being. But yeah. Anybody have any thoughts or questions or comments about chapter 133? Tenalito says, how do you work and read in Minecraft? I mean, the same way that I read chat, and it's a little bit harder than reading chat, but I've also been streaming since like 2008. So, yeah. Champagne Jane says, this is exciting. Yeah, well, that's the thing, though, is like this book meanders around the plot for a long time, and now we're here. We have, like, some people might say Ahab had lost the plot, but we actually just found it. Makes you forget about the pace of the beginning of the book. The end is so fast-paced. Yeah, that's also not necessarily a mistake on Melville's part. 2008 was before HermitCraft. I was streaming myself drawing for a few hours a night, and doing a few years after that, I was doing live streams of a few different things, including Adobe InDesign layout of a tabletop role-playing book I worked on. We did a Kickstarter for that, and we wanted the people who supported us on the Kickstarter to be able to see. I guess the Kickstarter might have been after I was already on HermitCraft, because I did a... I remember Hypno was one of the people who pre-ordered the book, so it was probably right around the same time. Welcome, Nymph. Centauratron says, this chapter was very captivating. Oh, thank you. How do I do fireworks? I don't actually do them. I just buy them from a guy. There's a guy named Cubfan who sells them on my server. You might have a Cubfan on your server. Good evening, Scar. Okay. So, we only have 40 minutes left in the stream. I'm assuming this next chapter is pretty long. We might not have time. We've got 2 chapters left in the book, and then I think there's like a little epilogue. I don't think we're going to get the... Yeah, we're not going to have time to read chapter 135 in the epilogue tonight. I'm just going to make that call right now. But I think if we start soon, we could finish chapter 134. So let's update the what we're reading link to point to the correct chapter here. Okay. And we're going to update that in YouTube as well. And we're going to post that in here. Cool, cool, cool. So, shockingly, it seems like I've actually done a pretty passable job of getting a lot of these lamps in. There's some places where I have not, like right here. Seems to be the big place I missed. So, yeah. Chapter 134, The Chase. Second day. At daybreak, the 3 mastheads were punctually manned afresh. "Do you see 'em?" cried Ahab, after allowing a little space for the light to spread. "See nothing, sir." "Turn up all hands and make sail. He travels faster than I thought. Yeah, the topgallant sails, aye. They should have been kept up on her all night. But no matter. 'Tis but resting for the rush." Here be it said that this pertinacious pursuit of one particular whale continued through day into night, and through night into day, is a thing by no means unprecedented in the South Seas fishery. For such is the wonderful skill, prescience of experience, and invincible confidence acquired by some great natural geniuses among the Nantucket commanders, that from the simple observation of a whale, when last descried, they will, under certain given circumstances, pretty accurately foretell both the direction in which he will continue to swim for a time while out of sight, as well as his probable rate of progression during that period. And, in those cases, somewhat as a pilot, when about losing sight of a coast, whose general trending he well knows, and which he desires shortly to return to again, but at some further point, like as this pilot stands by his compass and takes the precise bearing of the cape at present visible, in order the more certainly to hit aright the remote unseen headland eventually to be visited, so does the fisherman at his compass with the whale. For after being chased and diligently marked through several hours of daylight, then, when night obscures the fish, the creature's future wake through the darkness is almost as established to the sagacious mind of the hunter as the pilot's coast is to him. So that to this one hunter's wondrous skill, the proverbial evanescence of a thing writ in water, awake, is to all desired purposes well nigh as reliable as the steadfast land, and as the mighty iron leviathan of the modern railway is so familiarly known in its every pace that, with watches in their hands, men time his rate as doctors that of a baby's pulse, and lightly say of it, the up train or the down train will reach such and such a spot at such and such an hour. Even so, almost, there are occasions when these Nantucketers time that other Leviathan of the deep, according to the observed humor of his speed, and say to themselves, so many hours hence, this whale will have gone 200 miles, will have about reached this or that degree of latitude or longitude. But to render this acuteness at all successful in the end, the wind and the sea must be the whaleman's allies. For of what present avail to the becalmed or wind-bound mariner is the skill that assures him he is exactly 93 leagues and a quarter from his port. Inferable from these statements are many collateral subtle matters touching the case of Wales. The ship tore on, leaving such a furrow in the sea as when a cannonball missent becomes a plowshare and turns up the level field.
By salt and temp, cried Stubb. But this swift motion of the deck creeps up one's legs and tingles at the heart. The ship and I are two brave fellows. Someone take me up and launch me spinewise on the sea, for by live oaks my spine's a keel. We go the gate that leaves no dust behind.
There she blows, she blows, she blows, right ahead, was now the masthead cry.
Aye, cried Stubb. I knew it. Ye can't escape. Blow on and split your spout, oh whale. The mad fiend himself is after ye. Blow your trump, blister your legs. Ahab will dam off your blood, as a miller shuts his water gate upon the stream.
And Stubb did but speak out for well nigh all that crew. The frenzies of the chase had by this time worked them bubblingly up, like old wine worked anew. Whatever pale fears and forebodings some of them might have felt before, these were not only now kept out of sight through the growing awe of Ahab, but they were broken up and on all sides routed, as timid prairie hares that scatter before the bounding bison. The hand of fate had snatched all their souls, and by the stirring perils of the previous day, the rack of the past night's suspense, the fixed, unfearing, blind, reckless way in which their wild craft went plunging toward its flying mark, by all these things, their hearts were bowled along. The wind that made great bellies of their sails and rushed the vessel on by arms invisible as irresistible, this seemed the symbol of that unseen agency which so enslaved them to the race. They were one man, not 30. For as the one ship that held them all, though it was put together of contrasting things, oak and maple and pine wood, iron and pitch and hemp, yet all these ran into each other in the one concrete hull, which shot up on its way, both balanced and directed by the long central keel. Even so, all the individualities of the crew, this man's valor, that man's fear, guilt and guiltlessness, all varieties were welded into oneness and were directed to that fatal goal which Ahab, their one lord and keel, did point to. The rigging lived. The mastheads, like the tops of tall palms, were outspreadingly tufted with arms and legs, clinging to a spar with one hand, clinging to a spar with one hand, some reached forth the other with impatient wavings. Others, shading their eyes from the vivid sunlight, sat far out on the rocking yards, all the spars in full bearing of mortals, ready and ripe for their fate. Ah, how they still strove through that infinite blueness to seek out the one thing that might destroy them. Why sing ye not out for him if ye see him? Cried Ahab, when after the lapse of some minutes since the first cry, no more had been heard. Sway me up, men. Ye have been deceived. Not Moby Dick casts one odd jet that way, and then disappears. It was even so. In their headlong eagerness, the men had mistaken some other thing for a whale spout, as the event itself soon proved. For hardly had Ahab reached his perch, hardly was the rope belayed to its pin on deck, when he struck the keynote to an orchestra that made the air vibrate as with the combined discharges of rifles. The triumphant halloo of 30 buckskin lungs was heard, as much nearer to the ship than the place of the imaginary jet. Less than a mile ahead, Moby Dick bodily burst into view. For not by any calm and indolent spoutings, not by the peaceable gush of that mystic fountain in his head, did the white whale now reveal his vicinity, but by the far more wondrous phenomena of breaching. Rising with his utmost velocity from the furthest depths, the sperm whale thus booms his entire bulk into the pure element of air, and, piling up a mountain of dazzling foam, shows his place to the distance of 7 miles and more. In those moments, the torn, enraged waves he shakes off seam his mane. In some cases, this breaching is an act of defiance. "There she breaches! There she breaches!" was the cry. As in his immeasurable bravados, the white whale tossed himself salmon-like to heaven, so suddenly seen in the plain blue of the sea, and relieved against the still bluer margin of the sky, the spray that he raised, for the moment, intolerably glittered and glared like a glacier, and stood there, gradually fading and fading away from its sparkling intensity to the dim mistiness of an advancing shower in a vale. "I breach your last to the sun, Moby Dick!" cried Ahab. "Thy hour and thy harpoon are at hand. Down, down, all of ye but one man at the fore. The boats, stand by!" Unmindful of the tedious rope ladders of the shrouds, the men, like shooting stars, slid to the deck by the isolated backstays and halyards, while Ahab, less daringly, but still rapidly, was dropped from his perch. "Lower away!" he cried, as soon as he had reached his boat, a spare one rigged the previous afternoon. "Mr. Starbuck, the ship is thine. Keep away from the boats, but keep near 'em. Lower all." As if to strike quick terror into them, by this time being the first assailant himself, Moby Dick had turned, and was now coming for the 3 crews. Ahab's boat was central, and, cheering his men, he told them he would take the whale head and head. That is, pull up straight to the forehead, a not uncommon thing. For, when within a certain limit, such a course excludes the coming onset from the whale's sidelong vision. But ere that close limit was gained, and while yet all three boats were plain as the ship's mast to his eye, the white whale, churning himself into furious speed, almost in an instant as it were, rushing among the boats with open jaws. Oh, thanks, Tango. Also, welcome, Silent Whisperer Raiders. Yeah, sorry, I got distracted by Tango sleeping when I was trying to sleep. Yeah, I don't normally acknowledge raids or tips in the middle of a chapter. We are reading chapter 134 of Moby Dick, or The Whale by Herman Melville. We've been reading this a few chapters a week for almost a year now. There's the What We're Reading link if you would like to read along. But yeah, thank you, Silent Whisperer, for the raid. Let's go ahead. We're getting to a pretty dramatic point in the story, so I don't want to break it up too much. But ere that close limit was gained, and while yet all three boats were plain as the ship's three masts to his eye, the white whale, churning himself into furious speed almost in an instant as it were, rushing among the boats with open jaws and a lashing tail, offered appalling battle on every side. And, heedless of the irons darted at him from every boat, seemed only intent on annihilating each separate plank of which those boats were made. But, skillfully maneuvered, incessantly wheeling like trained chargers in the field, the boats, for a while, eluded him, though at times by but a plank's breadth, while all the time Ahab's unearthly slogan tore every other cry but his to shreds. But, at last, in his untraceable evolutions, the white whale so crossed and recrossed and in 1,000 ways entangled the slack of the three lines now fast to him, that they foreshortened and of themselves warped the devoted boats toward the planted irons in him. Though now, for a moment, the whale drew aside a little, as if to rally for a more tremendous charge. Seizing that opportunity, Ahab first paid out more line, and then was rapidly hauling and jerking it in upon it, hoping that way to disencumber it of some of the snarls, when lo, a sight more savage than the embattled teeth of sharks. Caught and twisted, corkscrewed in the mazes of the line, loose harpoons and lances, with their bristling barbs and points, came flashing and dripping up to the chocks in the bows of Ahab's boat. Only one thing can be done. Seizing the boat knife, he critically reached within, through, and then, without, the rays of steel, dragged in the line beyond, passed it, inboard, to the bowsman, and then, twice sundering the rope near the chocks, dropped the intercepted cluster of steel into the sea, and was all fast again. That instant, the white whale made a sudden rush among the remaining tangles of the other lines. By doing so, irresistibly dragged the more involved boats of Stubb and Flask toward the flukes, dashed them together like two rolling husks on a surf-beaten beach, and then, diving down into the sea, disappeared in a boiling maelstrom, in which, for a space, The odorous cedar chips of the wrecks danced round and round, like the grated nutmeg in a swiftly stirred bowl of punch. While the two crews were yet circling in the waters, reaching out after the revolving line tubs, oars, and other floating furniture, and while aslope, little Flask bobbed up and down like an empty vial, twitching his legs upward to escape the dreaded jaws of sharks, and Stubb was lustily singing out for someone to ladle him up. And while the old man's line, now parting, admitted of his pulling into the creamy pool to rescue who he could, in that wild simultaneousness of 1,000 concreted perils, Ahab's yet unstricken boat seemed drawn up toward heaven by invisible wires, as, arrow-like, shooting perpendicularly from the sea, the white whale dashed his broad forehead against its bottom and sent it, turning it over and over into the air, till it fell again, gunwale downwards, and Ahab and his men struggled out from under it, like seals from a seaside cave. The first uprising momentum of the whale, modifying its direction as he struck the surface, involuntarily launched him along it to a little distance from the center of the destruction he made, and, with his back to it, he now lay for a moment, slowly feeling with his flukes from side to side. And whenever a stray oar, bit of plank, the least chip or crumb of the boats touched his skin, his tail swiftly drew back and came sideways, smiting the sea. But soon, as if satisfied that his work for that time had been done, he pushed his pleated forehead through the ocean, and trailing after him the intermingled lines, continued his leeward way at a traveler's methodic pace. As before, the attentive ship, having descried the whole fight, again came bearing down to the rescue, and, dropping a boat, picked up the floating mariners, tubs, oars, and whatever else could be caught at, and safely landed them on her decks. Some sprained shoulders, wrists, and ankles, livid contusions, wrenched harpoons and lasses, and inextricable intricacies of rope, shattered oars and planks, all these were there. But no fatal, or almost fatal, or even serious ill seemed to have befallen anyone. As with Fedallah the day before, so Ahab was now found grimly clinging to his boat's broken half, which afforded a comparatively easy float, nor did it so exhaust him as the previous day's mishap. But when he was helped to the deck, all eyes were fastened upon him, as instead of standing by himself, he still half hung upon the shoulder of Starbuck, who had thus far been the foremost to assist him. His ivory leg had been snapped off, leaving but one short, sharp splinter. Aye, Starbuck, 'tis sweet to lean sometimes, be the leaner who he will. And would old Ahab had leaned oftener than he has.
The ferrule has not stood, sir, said the carpenter, now coming up. I put good work into that leg.
But no bones. Oh, sorry.
But no bones broken, sir, I hope, said Stubb with true concern.
Aye, and splintered all to pieces. Stubb, do you see it? But even with a broken bone, old Ahab is untouched, and I account no living bone of mine one jot more me than this dead one that's lost. Nor white whale, nor man, nor fiend can so much as graze old Ahab in his own proper and inaccessible being. Can any lead touch yonder floor? Any mast scrape yonder roof? Aloft there! Which way?
Dead to leeward, sir.
Up helm then. Pile on the sail again, shipkeepers. Down the rest of the spare boats and rig 'em. Mr. Starbuck, away. Muster the boat's crews.
Let me first help thee toward the bulwarks, sir.
Oh, how this splinter gores me now. Accursed fate that the unconquerable captain in the soul should have such a craven mate.
Sir?
My body, man. Not thee. Get me something for a cane there. That, shrivered lance will do. Muster the man. Surely I have not seen him yet, but by heaven it cannot be. Missing? Call them all. The old man's hinted thought was true. Upon mustering the company, the Parsee was not there.
The Parsee, cried Stubb. He, must have been caught in the
black vomit wrench thee! Run, all of ye above! Alow, cabin, forecastle! Find him! Not gone! Not gone! But quickly they returned with the tidings that the Parsee was nowhere to be found.
Aye, sir, said Stubb. Caught among the tangles of your line. I thought I saw him dragging under.
My line! My line! Gone? Gone? What means that little word? What death knell rings in it that old Ahab shakes as if he were the belfry? The harpoon, too. Toss over that litter there. Do you see it? The forged iron, men. The white whales. No. Blistered fools. This hand did dart it. 'Tis in the fish. Aloft there. Keep him nailed. Quick. All hands to the rigging of the boats. Collect the oars, harpooneers, the irons. Hoist the royals higher. I'll pull out all the sheets. Helm there. Steady for your life. I'll 10 times girdle the unmeasured globe, yea, and dive straight through it. But I'll slay him yet.
Great God! But for one single instant show thyself, cried Starbuck. Never wilt thou capture him, old man. In Jesus' name, no more of this. That's worse than devil's madness. 2 days chased, twice stove to splinters. That's worse. 2 days chased, twice stove to splinters. Thy very leg once more snatched from under thee. Thy evil shadow gone. All good angels mobbing thee with warnings. What more wouldst thou have? Shall we keep chasing this murderous fish till he swamps the last man? Shall we be dragged by him to the bottom of the sea? Shall we be towed by him to the infernal world? Oh, impiety and blasphemy to hunt him more.
Starbuck, of late, I've felt strangely moved to thee. Ever since that hour we both saw, thou knowest what, in another's eyes. But in this matter of the whale, be the front of thy face to me as the palm of this hand, a lipless, unfeatured blank. Ahab is forever Ahab, man. This whole act's immutably decreed. 'Twas rehearsed by thee and me a billion years before this ocean rolled. Fool, I am the fate's lieutenant, and I act under orders. Look thou, underling, that thou obeyest mine. Stand round me, men. Ye see an old man cut down to the stump, leaning on a shivered lance, propped up on a lonely foot. 'Tis Ahab, his body's part, but Ahab's soul's a centipede that moves upon 100 legs. I feel strained, half-stranded as ropes that tow dismasted frigates in a gale, and I may look so, but ere I break, ye'll hear me crack. And till ye hear that, know that Ahab's trouser tows his purpose yet. Believe ye, men, in the things called omens? Then laugh aloud and cry encore. For ere they drown, drowning things will rise twice to the surface, then rise again to sink forevermore. So with Moby Dick. 2 days he's floated. Tomorrow will be the third. Aye, men, he'll rise once more, but only to spout his last. Do you feel brave, man? Brave?
As a fearless fire, cried Stubb.
And as mechanical, muttered Ahab. Then, as the men went forward, he muttered on. The things called omens, and yesterday I talked the same to Starbuck there concerning my broken boat. Oh, how valiantly I seek to drive out of others' hearts what's clinched so fast in mine. The Parsi, gone, and he was to go before, but still was to be seen again ere I could perish. How's that? There's a riddle now might baffle all the lawyers backed by the ghosts of a whole line of judges. Like a hawk's beak, it pecks my brain. I'll solve it quick enough, though. When dusk descended, the whale was still in sight to leeward. So, once more, the sail was shortened, and everything passed nearly as on the previous night. Only the sound of hammers and the hum of the grindstone was heard until nearly daylight, as the men toiled by lanterns in the complete and careful rigging of the spare boats, and sharpening their fresh weapons for the morrow. Meantime, of the broken keel of Ahab's wrecked craft, the carpenter made him another leg, while still, as on the night before, slouched Ahab stood fixed within his scuttle, his hid heliotrope glance anticipatingly gone backward on its dial, sat due eastward for the earliest sun. And that concludes chapter 134 of Moby Dick, or The Whale, by Herman Melville. So let's see, we had some comments come in while I was doing that reading section. Moldy Cheese says, just got here. Is he reading a book or just going with the flow? Porque no los dos? Hey, Peppermint Butler, I'm not ready to share details about that project at this time. Personally hope we can send Jev supplies for an enderpearl pushing flying machine. It might be slow, but could be making the trip while working on other solutions. 29 million blocks is a long way for a flying machine in Minecraft. Champagne Jane says, I don't actually know how this book ends. Very invested. Looking forward to next week. I'm pretty sure, yeah, we are going to have a reading stream next week. That's the current plan. I had a possible conflict, but it hasn't been confirmed yet. So we'll keep an eye out. If we have to move the stream earlier in the day or something like that, we'll make it work. We'll figure it out. Wandering Mass says, I can only imagine how much takes place in the last chapter. Who knows? Maybe the last chapter is just a list of different types of coral. It's that kind of book. It really could go any direction. Mermaid Finn in the YouTube chat says, kudos to Joe for reading so smoothly. It's tough to get through the dense wording. I feel like I was tripping up a lot. I didn't want to lose the conceit. Like, we've made it this far in the book playing Minecraft while reading. I didn't want to be like, and now for the last few chapters, I'm just going to give up on the Minecraft part and just read. Because that feels like it kind of, like, I don't know. Yeah, we're just going to learn about centipedes. You know, in the previous chapter, Ahab mentioned that his soul was like a centipede. And, you know, I was told by Tashtego that there are many cultures in North America that have held fast to this belief for generations. But yeah, if y'all are enjoying these readings, just as a reminder, we are $12 away from our second face camera expansion milestone. Tips are welcome via paypal.me/JoeHills and YouTube Super Chat. White Space says, have you read Moby Dick previously, or is this the first time you're reading it too? I read it about 10 years ago. And so I didn't remember a lot of the details very well, but there were a few things that stuck out at me that made me feel like it was worth a revisit. So that's what we're doing. Bum, 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 bum. I wonder if Wishbone ever did a Moby Dick episode. What's the story, Wishbone? What's this you're dreaming up? Such big imagination for such a little pup. Nope, never heard of it. Reference missed. Whoosh. Okay. What's the story, Wishbone? Let's wag another tail. We'll go on adventure with Wishbone on the trail. Come on, Wishbone. Okay. Fidmaster says, I think me and Joe had the same childhood. I mean, I think a lot of people had PBS in America. And presumably other neighboring countries that could receive the nearby signals. But yeah. Wandering Mass is the only episode of Wishbone I remember was the one with the Greek myths and for some reason also Frankenstein. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. Yeah, this feels like it's coming together. One thing that's nice about this stage of the project is even if we are just kind of hanging out over here, the copper is still aging. Like, we're getting something out of even just chilling in the general area. Oh, we did forget to, or not forget, but we did not have the chance to put these on here. Moby Dick was indeed smarter than the average whale. Welcome, Mount Bacon. Glad you could join us. We're just doing some finishing touches as we prepare to wrap up the stream here. Okay. Okay. This is feeling pretty decent. It's all coming together. Got our lobby pit, our reception pit down here. See, I can receive. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hi, woo, yay. Okay. Okay. Well, hey, thank you, Mermaid Finn, for tipping 2. We were 12 away from the next Space Gamer expansion milestone. Now we're only 10. Appreciate it, Mermaid Finn. Okay. I'm not sure that there's much else we really want to try and knock out tonight. We've kind of hit the natural stopping point for the stream because the projects that I need to do, the redstone that I acquired yesterday, that technology needs to be developed off camera and saved for an episode to avoid leaking to Doc. So we're going to want to do that during the day tomorrow. I've also got a Patreon build contest tomorrow that I'm going to be streaming, and I've got a bunch of editing to do. Am I doing interiors? Kind of. I'm working on the rough, so the museum exhibits are going to be built on these platforms, so I'm basically detailing the platforms. These aren't really proper interiors. You could argue that the model I'm building inside of the office... It's so easy to forget which side is which. The model inside the office over here is arguably kind of an interior. But also kind of not. So I don't know if this counts. But okay. Yeah, so big day tomorrow, which means probably chill early night tonight. I had to wake up early to get my kid to the airport, and I have not had a nap all day. It's just been go, go, go. So yeah, we are going to wrap up here. Chris and Chili says this was a really nice way to wrap up my birthday. Well, before we go, Feliz cumpleaños a ti, Feliz cumpleaños a ti, Feliz cumpleaños a Chris y Chili, Feliz cumpleaños a ti, y muchas más. Okay. All right. So have a fantastic rest of your evening, everyone, especially you, Chris. Thank you for sharing part of your birthday with us. We are wrapping up now. Let me see who is live at the moment. Let's see. Lots of folks, but I think we're going to go with the IFPA Pin Masters Finals, which, let's see who is playing. It looks like it is, oh, I cannot read that. That's such small text. Jared August, Bowen, Adam McKinney. That's such a weird font. And Danielle. Boy, that's a weird font. They should have, it's hard to read. It's fine. We're going to read the Backhand Pinball, who is hosting the 2025 IFPA Pin Masters Finals. When you get over there, our raid message is howdy y'all, Joe Hills right here. Until next time, y'all, this is Joe Hills from Nashville, Tennessee.